When Gen Alpha decides something is memeable slang, it becomes like 6-7 or Sigma or Skibbity or whatever. It's just like nonsense into the void that can mean anything. Maybe we were just uninventive as millennials, or we didn't have as many inputs. We said cool. And I don't know.
Why, hello, friends. Welcome to this week's More or Less, which is a very special episode.
Hey, Jess.
Hey, Dave. So this week, I'm great. Our partners are busy doing other things.
Yeah, doing fancy other things.
Yeah, I don't know. Doing work, you know? So this is going to be the first Desica episode or Jave episode. But I get to sit down with Dave Moore and no one else. And, you know, Dave, I'm actually pretty excited about this because when I first moved to San Francisco in 2008, we would get coffee in the marina at that corner restaurant place that was called what?
The Grove, I think. The famous Grove. May it rest in peace.
Wait, it's no longer there?
It's no longer there. It is now a Taco-licious, I believe, which is a significant downgrade. And famously, that Grove, I think, was part of the beginning of social networks. Well, apparently, when Friendster came along, the idea happened because everyone would go to the Grove in the early internet days because you'd run into everyone. And the joke was that every internet project was 6 degrees from the Grove. And someone said, I believe it was the founder of Friendster, was like, oh, I should make a mapping of this. And he would have to check this story. But this was a famous story in the early social networking days that the Grove was kind of ground zero. So I always loved that place.
I don't know if I ever knew that. I just liked like their like grilled cheese or something. You know, it's very like, for all you viewers out there who don't know the former Marina Grove, which is probably the same as the multiple branches still in San Francisco, but
I think they've all closed except one, and maybe even that one, the one over by the MoMA, is the only one left standing.
I think it's open because I see it on DoorDash. But this is not fancy. This is not like, this is, you know, your basic pickle kind of place, right?
Classic 2000s coffee shop.
Yeah. Well, I remember going there and picking your brain on all things tech. And anytime I just didn't understand a theme in tech, Dave would be my go-to for understanding it. And so here we are. We get to do it again in this wild moment. And it's pretty fun. So a lot continues to happen in this week. But when I was thinking about what I wanted to talk to you about, I feel like we have not gone deep enough into some of like the specific apps or specific experiences on the consumer AI side. Like we get all these launches like Sora and things that we like talk about a little bit. And then, you know, usually Sam says it's dumb. And then Britt's already like figured out how to leverage it, you know, in some smart way. And I can barely log in. That's usually the cycle. But like you've always had just real like taste around and like a touch for like, you know, how are these things changing? Not consumers' lives in like the sense that we're going to have a doctor in our pocket or whatever, but like these actual experiences, especially around social experiences. So I kind of wanted to start and just ask like what you're using and seeing these days on this front. Or if I know like in the past you maybe have been playing with a bunch of stuff yourself, but haven't seen a lot of companies that you think are nailing it. But what's the October 2025 update?
It's interesting that you bring up doctors in our pocket. I was at a conference this weekend, the Doc conference, which I think maybe I saw pop up on the information last week. Jordan Schlane and John Battelle. Yeah. And they had a great debate this weekend around, they had Reid Hoffman and a doctor on one side, and they had Mikey Krieger and then a woman who heads up AI company focused on replacing primary care doctors. And the debate was, will doctors be replaced by AI? And it was an Oxford style debate.
Yeah. Who was on which side?
So Reid and the doctor were on the side of no, AI will not replace doctors. And then Mikey.
And the Anthropic product leader.
Yes, was on the yes, we are going to replace doctors side, as is the person building a startup to replace doctors. And the interesting twist that they threw in, which I loved, was after each side took a turn, Reid went first, Mikey went second. They actually had Claude, or they called it, I think, Claude and Claudia, debate one side. So each side was, so it came on the speakers and it debated the first, the no, it will not replace doctors, and then it debated yes, it will, and then the second two humans went, and then at the end they asked everybody in the audience to raise their hands if they were on the human side or the AI side. And all of the humans in the audience took the side of AI will not replace doctors.
Shocking.
And then they asked AI, which I believe they called Claudius, to analyze the entire debate and choose a winner. And the AI chose the AI side. The two sides came down to kind of, I'm grossly oversimplifying, but the AI side kind of took this argument of that, there's like 4 billion people at least that don't have access to a primary care physician. There's no way we're going to, grow the number of doctors in the world to meet that demand. And so, of course, AI will become the front lines for the billions of people without doctors for getting some kind of medical care. On the other side, the doctor actually articulated a scenario where somebody was going through end of life care with their father, and they needed to have a discussion about a certain type of cancer where if they left the cancer in the person and didn't treat it, they would get 4 years of life. If they did operate, they could die tomorrow. And so they were making this decision together, like, should they do this? And to make the decision to stay on leave the cancer in, you have to look at their psychology. Can they live with knowing that this cancer is inside of them for 4 years? Do they have the social support? Do they have somebody to do palliative care? These kinds of things. And all of that decision making is sort of biological, psychological and social. So biopsychosocial decision making that you just can't ask an AI to do, nor can an AI really understand the social context in the psychological context in the middle of all of that. And so therein lies the role of the doctor. And back to your point, defining what a doctor is 10 years from now is a really interesting question, right? Like, is it still this person that needs to go to school for 10 years to learn the 20,000 medications and all of their interactions, the 10,000 possible diagnoses, and all those interactions with all the medications? And, a lot of what you're doing in medical school today is like learning a lot of these physiological things that you need to understand and all of these interactions amongst all the possible diagnoses and then treatments that you can provide. Or is a lot of that going to be extracted away into AI? And then is the role of the doctor actually a deeply social one? Do they look more like a social worker or a rabbi or a spiritual worker has worked in the community in the past, where they're actually making these life and death decisions with all of the data in front of them but really that's a group family decision, like, and what is that role? Is that still doctor, quote unquote, or is that something else entirely? So anyway, that's the kind of conversation that it inspired, which I found very interesting.
But I agree, it's interesting. It's also so, who knows, and far into the
Yeah.
future. I mean, there are companies like Open Evidence, which builds basically a chatbot for doctors that,
Yep. Which that doctor actually referenced in context of making that decision with that person. Like they use that to.
Yeah, I think their stats are astounding in terms of their distribution. And they have a model. They're free, but with B2B advertising, I think. Don't quote me on this. I'm just talking about it at a cocktail party. But that feels far away. What about the here and now? And I think one of the ideas I've been thinking about just in my own use is like, should I be building AI apps for me? Which is like a little bit crazy. But then I see all these new apps that pop up, and I'm sure you've tried them all, and I've tried none of them, which are like sort of something in that vein. And it reminds me, I think we've talked about this, of sort of the mobile app revolution. Only it's a little bit different because I never wondered I guess I wondered whether the information should launch an app, and being late to that was one of the stupidest decisions I've made, because second, we launched one many, many years ago now, but our engagement went through the roof. But like, yeah, that was not, when you get that question, like, what are some of the biggest, I mean, I've made plenty of mistakes, but that was a clear, like, I was like, guys, who's going to.
So it made that meaningful of a difference
Yeah.
in terms of your mobile page views, mobile engagement, like all that stuff.
Just engagement. I mean, our average session time on the information is about 19 minutes, which is long. And I forget what it was before that, but.
And a high percentage of those users are in the mobile app versus consuming it through Safari or a mobile web browser.
So our app penetration as part of our subscriber base is still like under half. But it was one of those things that you can look at time spent before launch, and you can look at time spent after lunch, and I don't remember the numbers now, but you can say it like moved the needle. And now it's just really important because like we do a lot with our deep research product and our community product and all these kind of things. But largely just as Jessica, the founder, I could sit out being a mobile app builder. And I just wonder now, like I'm giving a slide presentation on at our kids' school on Saturday about what a.
Do you mean personally, as Jessica, the founder of the information, you can sit out? Yeah, I mean, building a mobile app was incredibly difficult. Like it was
yeah, but now we're in a different place, right? Where it's like I could build things that track, pick a workflow I have to do: reading competitive coverage, scouting other great reporters out there, staying on top of just so many different things. And like, I'll run into someone who's like, oh, you could do that with AI. And, and sometimes it's not even an app, right? It's setting an alert. And then I see, I guess, more importantly, these startups. I forget the latest one. I think it begins with a W, that is sort of like pushing, maybe in the same way like the low code movement was, but on a different level. And so I just wonder, we've been waiting for some of these consumer waves, right? Like after social networking. And I mean, it turns out like video is basically in the latest consumer wave, and the oldest and the futurist, to not use a word. But I don't know, are you seeing anything in that realm that's like AI and shopping is starting to get a lot of buzz, although I'm still not convinced. Or
there's buzz, but I think the reality is that there's clearly a incredibly powerful use case around summarization, right? Like I think there's two use cases that like almost everyone is using. One is they're using, your standard ChatGPT interface or Grok interface to just ask questions and, do creative work, do, all kinds of things. People just like, I think, are hammering these things for all manner of reasons in their lives, like they used to do with Google. The other one is summarization, right? Like I don't walk into a meeting where someone's definitely summarizing and, transcripting the meeting using these tools, right? Like that's like clearly a slam dunk. Now, there's like a lot of different tools for that. Zoom does it. Like I was randomly on a Zoom call like yesterday and I guess that was turned on and I got their summarization. And it actually reminded me why I don't trust a lot of these tools, which is that the summarization was like incredibly verbose. And I was just like, TLDR, I just literally deleted it. I was like, this is worthless to me. And I kind of think that's actually the story that's the answer to your question right now, which is that there's a lot of slop being put into everything right now. Like the amount of work product that I see put in front of me by people on the various teams that I've involved with or boards that I'm on is insane. Like every day there's something. And I've actually started asking everyone when I read something like, was AI used for this? What was you?
So you're getting the slop here is sort of some kind of summarization of some content.
Or it's a generation. I think it's either a summarization or something that was a generation. Last week there was actually a very important meeting and set of work product that I was working on with somebody. And they sent me I guess what amounts to like a work product that was the result of a meeting that was summarized and then additional work built on top of that. And there was a specific point that I was focused on. And I said, is this actually what we're talking about here? And they were like, no, 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 no. You're getting the context all wrong. And I literally had to copy and paste the exact quote, like the exact bullet point. And I'm like, this is what this bullet point says. They're like, no, that's not the right context. And I'm like, well, this is why I told you we shouldn't be using AI documents to have this conversation. What ended up ensuing was like this 15-minute loss of my life, which I'm never going to get back, trying to make sense of the AI summarization combined with the AI generation slop that was produced as work product, right?
Well, also, no, with no disrespect to the person on the other side of this transaction, but read your work before you send it, right? I mean, I think our AI policy, the information is a human is accountable, And again, we're not using it to write articles or anything like that, but we are using it to summarize things.
You're in a business where that matters, right? Like there's so much of this going on.
But don't you have to, like, at the risk of bringing up the one topic we didn't have to talk about this week, which is Sam's etiquette school, because he's not here, plug for etiquette school. I'm such a good wife, such a good wife.
Oh, God. I still can't believe this.
Well, I actually, I'm sitting here drinking a non-alcoholic beer at 2:22 p.m. And I'm kind of wondering, actually, I kind of want to talk to the etiquette gods. Am I allowed to do this or not? So there are edge cases. I thought of this earlier that like.
Did you see the Saturday Night Live ad this weekend about non-alcoholic beer?
No, but I love it. All right. Oh my God. It's just so good.
It was all time.
I'm also trying to this is about when we start preparing for our year in review edit packages, which are so fun because you get to step back and try and remember yourself and the world 12 months before, 10 months before, if you're preparing now. And it's just so fun when things move so fast. But I wondered if you were doing the 2025 in Silicon Valley culture, what would be on that list or on that compilation? And
non-alcoholic beer.
Yeah, I think that we're not there yet, but we've got to be so close.
Yeah, I mean, it would be like an AI slop LinkedIn post that makes half sense, and and then there'd be like a follow-up post, which is the Sora video that's made from your AI LinkedIn slop, but you probably made multiple scenes of your Sora slop video, and then you kind of posted that and kind of got no response, but kept doing it anyway. It's like you can have the dead internet theory part of the the whole thing. It's like the internet no longer has any humans on it.
Oh yeah, the dead internet, the slop. You'd have to get like, $500 billion valuations and GPUs in there too or something. But
yeah, and like $1 billion pay packages for AI engineers, that has to be in there, right? From companies that have no AI product. It's just like
well, I do laugh, and he's a friend of the pod and a friend of TITV, but Garrett Lord of Handshake, who
oh yeah, I talked to him yesterday. Love that guy.
like Garrett legitimately has an amazing AI story. Right? I don't know to our listeners who are not familiar. Handshake was the leader in on-campus recruiting at colleges. Realized that infrastructure allowed them to really efficiently recruit the experts who kind of are involved in the post-training and verification of these AI models. Was doing that for other companies, kind of started doing it themselves. But I saw yesterday, and I haven't ribbed him about this yet, although now he'll know, but he announced a refounding of his company along these principles. Well, I think it was also accompanied with a lot of layoffs and all that.
It's what all great founders do when they need to, yeah, exactly, hide layoffs and change the business model.
But I thought refounding was the first. I mean, we've seen it. We've seen founder mode. We've seen whatever, but refound. So the refounding era, yeah. But back to, I was also. I mean, we can circle back to this topic with the rest of the gang. But I think also, obviously, GLP-1s.
Oh yeah, I don't go a day without hearing about them.
I'm like, I've stopped eating mango because Viome told me it really spikes my blood sugar more than it should. I don't really love mango, but now I'm like, don't eat the mango. So we'll see. We'll check back in 3 months, see if I'm a changed person. But these are the kinds of things that I think do, in some ways, define this era, in addition to all the other stuff. So, okay, we're back to consumers. So you think really, so nothing's knocking your socks off. Can you give me a specific company name? You can be an investor or not. You just think is interesting. Like, this doesn't have to be a full-throated endorsement. It doesn't have to mean you're secretly investing in them, but it's just caught your eye.
It kind of, well, no, I'll just talk my own book. I think I've mentioned it before on the pod, but BitRig, I'm really interested in, and I'm an investor. There is no iPhone app that can build iPhone apps.
Okay.
There hasn't been one yet. There are, over 1 billion iPhones out there. And it's, there's like this constant narrative that apps are dead. The internet is dead. Everything's dead. It's very sad, but that's not actually true. You're asking me a really good question. Like, Dave, do I start like building my own personal AI stack? Like, am I going to have my own personal AI stack? Like I have my own personal set of apps on the front page of my phone right now. I mean, maybe, but you also need a tool to build those things. And the AI tools right now, though we've talked about them at great length on the pod, they're still not really good enough to build you your own personal AI stack. Like they're really not. Like they're really good at like running you into a corner that you have no idea how to get out of. Like that's what most of these vibe coding tools are really good at. And so there needs to be like a better and frankly more powerful set of tools to do that. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm really psyched about BitRig is that, I think that people need not just new web apps and new sort of workflow apps, but they're also going to need to be able to deliver an iPhone app onto people's iPhones, right? If you want to see like a Cambrian explosion of everybody having their own personal iPhone app, which has like always been a dream of mine. Like one of the things that I actually wanted to do to Path before we ended up selling it is I was like really into this idea that everybody could have their own little app. Like everybody had their own.
Why do you need one app? So it can share data? Because
I don't know. Like it's kind of a strange thing that like in order to have a chat interface between you and me, we have to like rent space in Facebook's building or Snapchat's building in order to have our chat app. Like, why can't we have our own custom designed one for like the way you and I like to communicate? Or, maybe I'm a small business and I want to like customize my user experience. Like today I have to like use Shopify's UIs or, Instagram's UI. Why can't I fully customize and personalize that experience? Like, and the answer to that question was always that it was just too expensive to build a mobile app, right? And so you had to depend on a group of people in a building somewhere to build kind of a really general one.
And not just expensive in terms of money, but it's like there are plenty of like other people just do it better. It's not your comparative advantage, even if it's easy.
Though most people, if you ask them like, oh, I'd really like it if it did this or that, and
So I have to have different apps to communicate with you and a different app for Sam. I mean, now, but I don't really want, oh God.
Ours would be way more fun.
Ours would be fun. So many Taylor Swift quotes and snow reports. It would be amazing. It would be like,
there would be sports and music and, cultural things.
Oh, gosh. And Sam's would just be like me, into the ether, sending vibes and getting nothing back.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yours with Sam would be like a unidirectional communication. Like there'd be no way for him to communicate back.
Yeah, it'd be a broadcast platform. It would be X. It would be X. It would actually be check your WhatsApp. Check your WhatsApp, because our like nanny communicates via WhatsApp, but Sam refuses to look at it. So my iMessage with him is like, check your WhatsApp. Yeah, that's pretty much.
I mean, I think that's a good way to think about all of this, right? Because like whether it's a workflow app that you're talking about building for yourself, I mean, yes, there are research workflows you could build that are like deeply empowering to just you personally. Like, oh, okay, I want to have like the equivalent of my entire staff of the information and agents, and they're going to go out and scour the internet and give me one perspective on what we should be talking about this week. And then I'm going to compare that to my human staff. And then that's great. Okay, fine. But the more powerful case, I think everybody's hoping happens, but like we're not sure is here yet, is where the you plus AI interacting with another human becomes interesting, right? And like that to me is like, can you generate entire iPhone apps for you or for the information? Or I think you're doing an event. You have an event coming up, right? And do you have
my controversial women's conference? Yes.
a custom app just for that event? Probably not today.
No.
But it would be nice if you did. Everyone that goes to an event.
Yeah, I like a good. See, this is again, I was wrong. I was down on event apps. Now I love a good event app. Tells me where to be, when.
Yeah, right. And wouldn't it be great if you could build one easily? Like it's still not that possible.
So I guess my question, so like the vision of infinite personalization of greater and greater power, and just like, I feel like a version of this conversation played out with the internet too. And wouldn't it be nice to have this personalized and that personalized and to build my own version of this? But the trend has actually been towards greater consolidation. Like I spend more of my life today on the top 3 or 4 than ever before. And they can do it better, more efficiently, more cost effectively. So is there something about AI that you think will reverse that trend?
Yeah, I mean, I think the dream is what we're talking about, which is that what we are today calling vibe coding meets a better, more powerful, like consumer, prosumer grade interface for creating an app for an event. Maybe you want to just create an app just for your friend's birthday, and it's like this, cool experience for them.
Is Britt creating an app for her birthday?
Oh, maybe. Her birthday is like on another planet right now.
I mean, these updates I'm getting, I have to like take a deep breath before I read the emails. Like
it's going to be really good. She's gone. Her creative mind is like really on a next level. But I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think if it were straightforward enough to just create into that medium, I think the answer would be yes. Right. One of the analogies that I always think about is when it comes to this stuff is music. Like before a lot of the electronic music tools happened in the 80s and 90s, like in order to create and distribute music that was like really good, you had to have like a very specific set of music training with like each successive musical tool, whether it was like the drum machines, like the Roland 808 or synthesizers or auto tune. Like you ended up with like this massive expansion in people being able to express themselves into this medium in easier and easier ways. And so it enabled the onboarding of a lot more musicians of a lot of different types and like kind of an explosion in genres and cross genres and some people would argue like it's led us to worse music today. I don't know if that's true. I think the diversity in music now is like dramatically larger. The subcultures perhaps are not as deep as they were because in the 90s there was just less. But I think that you were able to create and express yourself into this medium more and more. And it's just been hard to do that with code up until now. It's like there's what did I see on Meta's last earnings report? They have over 3 billion users of their systems. And there's something like only a couple of million total software engineers in the world. And so the number of people that use apps and the number of people that can create apps, the chasm is enormous. And I think the promise of AI is that more people will be able to express themselves as into apps, whether that's for business, for personal, for whatever. Therefore, you just have this more vibrant world, right? And perhaps less consolidation. Now, I don't know if you're right. Sure looks like a lot of people are using ChatGPT right now. And I think the big investor question that a lot of us are debating around GP tables right now is like, it's really hard to pick what is going to get eaten by the core model and consolidated into the core model and what's going to be opportunities in the application layer in this world. I don't know that we could probably talk this whole time about this question. And I don't think I'd have a good answer for you.
Well, and that reminds me, it was so fun. My takeaway from OpenAI Developer Day a week ago, 2 weeks ago, whenever it was that I was more interested in the number of people who ahead of time came up and asked if we knew what was being launched, and the people that day who were just kind of on pins and needles around it.
Interesting. So what would you have expected?
Just not that many.
Like, was that number higher or lower than your expectation, I guess?
Oh, it was way higher. Like, way higher. Mostly people, it's like you follow and then you read, but people were so paranoid / interested. But I think to your case in the start, they were paranoid. They were going out of their way. People don't often reach out. Some people reach out to me, Dave. A lot of people try to steer clear of me. I can cause trouble. But like when people, again, the type of people who usually...
I like to think this podcast has helped people understand you better.
Acquired taste. But like 50-50, people who would 50% take my call for it. Like they half the time they pick up, half the time they don't for whatever reason. Like those people proactively reaching out to me.
So you're saying but your read on this was they were worried that something that was going to be announced might impact their business or their investment or whatever.
Totally. These are startup founders or competing people at big companies. Yeah, no, absolutely. It was crystal clear. And it was sort of like...
That anxiety is real.
No, it totally is. And I remember, and it's always been there. Remember Jasper? I was in a different office for the information. So we've moved since then, but I think Jasper was like an AI copywriting tool or something
What was Jasper?
It was like copywriting, marketing using AI. An extraordinary value. It was one of these like 2 weeks, someone puts in money at $1 gazillion. And
that goes to show how fast this has all moved because that wasn't that long ago. And I remember we looked at all the versions of Jasper. There was Jasper, there was another copywriting tool, there was a story writing tool. And we actually at the time were like, this seems obvious that the models are going to be able to do this, right?
No, but now you actually have, one of the themes the information team is thinking a lot about too right now is like, okay, you have these huge behemoths of companies and sort of like take OpenAI as one, but you could say the same of Meta, Google, Microsoft, et cetera, Amazon. They're working on this technology. They're trying to stay at the cutting edge. And then they're deciding when to launch products. And you see things like Sora, which I think Altman said, like we're trying to cure cancer. We're going to launch stuff like this along the way. And you kind of wonder, what is the conversation inside all these places about what to launch and when, or what to launch as a feature, but what to productize, or what to build out as a separate use case versus just have like a tooltip to prompt people to use it. And so I think that's partially why you see this paranoia from other parts of the industries. This technology could literally be pointed in one of a gazillion directions, namely right at you, right? And it's like you're not focusing on enterprise until you are focusing on enterprise, right? You're not focusing on enterprise when you need to get this deal done. And then all of a sudden you think you can do it better, which is how it's always been. But yeah, so I think that's why it sort of got dialed to. It reminds me, hope they probably won't love that I'm sharing this, but I don't recall it being off the record. But years ago, I was interviewing Brian Roberts, the CEO of Comcast. It was just like a on the record interview for the Wall Street Journal. And it was during an iPhone launch. And so like literally to the minute. And Steve was still alive. And I remember going in to Brian's really nice office at 30 Rock. And he was streaming the presentation on a screen that was like behind my head. And so I'm like trying, we're talking about how's the merger going or whatever kind of thing I was talking about. And it was sort of like how I feel with those like glasses. It's like, hello, are you texting or paying attention to me? Right. He was just and you know what? He was not wrong. In that moment, there was so much skepticism about Apple launching a television, and actually a full-blown a television, there were all these attempts and discussions with places like Comcast to do more in the cable market. And it was like at that moment, I mean, I'm surprised he didn't cancel the interview, to be honest. It was probably more important for him to tune into that than talk to me. So Brian, thank you for taking the interview. But I remember those moments because it reminds you, like so often these CEOs who we, only see in action to such a tiny degree are also these like paranoid, fiercely competitive in the trenches kind of leaders. And so I like that about him. I like that I think we're on the top floor of 30 Rock, and this guy was so in the weeds of his business, he had to watch in real time what turned out not to be a direct assault on his business. So anyway, that was a long time ago. Dave, I want to make sure today I've been thinking a lot about kids in tech and our kids in tech. And the reason this came up this week is the Wall Street Journal wrote an article about 6-7, which I think we have discussed on the pod, but for those who may have missed it.
I don't even know it's funny. This is one of those things that I feel like hit me out of left field. Like all the parents and kids are all of a sudden talking about this, and I have no idea where it came from or what it means. Someone explained to me it's like a kid it was like related to a sporting event or something.
There's no consensus on what this means. It is a pure meme. Ask 100 people and they'll say they have absolutely no idea, or they'll give you some convoluted expectation, like 6 feet, 7 inches tall or something like that. But basically, so my introduction to 6-7 was last year. It was like raining one day. So our then 7-year-old got to do recess inside with like the middle schoolers and played basketball with them. And he came back and he just started saying 6-7. And you have to say it like that. You have to go 6-7. I'm like, what on earth is this? He's like, Mom, it's so 6-7. And I finally traced it back to these kids. And of course, my then 7-year-old had no idea what it meant, but because these cool middle schoolers were using it, it was all the rage. And then it just kind of continued. And it's sort of this like nonsense thing. I asked my younger sort of second cousins about it, who were like 11 and 13-year-old girls this summer. And their interpretation was like badass. Like you say, it's something 6-7 if like someone shoots a great shot in basketball or something.
That feels like the whole thing with Gen Alpha, right? Like Gen Alpha memes are like speedrunning abstraction. They've first we lost all context into, and now we've lost language. So we've just gone completely into numbers. And when Gen Alpha decides something is memeable slang, it becomes 6-7 or Sigma or Skibbity or whatever. It's just nonsense into the void that can mean anything. I don't know, maybe we were just uninventive as millennials, or we didn't have as many inputs, but we said cool. And I don't know.
Yes. But this is what I was interested in asking you about. What does it say? 'Cause the journal article, which is Yeah, everyone can skip it. Let's just get no. It basically is it doesn't get at the why. It just says the headline is the numbers 6 and 7 are making life hell for math teachers. 6-7 sends teens into a frenzy that schools have been powerless to stop. It's like throwing catnip at cats. Okay. But like why? So you're focused on the numbers. I'm determined to understand this.
I don't know. It's like, I don't know, 6-7 is the Grove for Gen Alpha. It's like the place that they meet, but nobody knows where it is. It's just like this like weird, I don't know. Is the world just moving by so fast and metabolizing, like memes metabolize so quickly that people just like, I don't know, we're old enough to remember when everybody watched the same TV show. And so you had this like same TV show to talk about around the water cooler was like the old saying. And so is this effectively like the modern water cooler where like there are memes that are so simple that they break through and because they become a something that everyone can talk about and everyone can share in common. And so they're kind of like a meeting place that proves you're part of the same generation. Like, is that what these things really are?
Yeah, like the closest thing I can get to is like Pig Latin, which back in my day was sort of like something I spoke with my friends, but
it just seems like the metabolism is faster. Like I think that every youth culture has these things, right? But it's like, I think the defining hallmark of current youth culture is that it just moves through stuff so fast. Like it's like staying like in the memetics is really difficult because there's just so much moving through the culture because they communicate. They're, for better or for worse, they have digital communication that's part of their life, right? And so there's just more information moving faster and faster. And so they're going to move on to something else. It'll be like, I don't know, there's got to be somebody studying this.
Well, so I was grilling my poor 8-year-old now because I'm like, you got to tell me what's next. He also was obsessed with this video game that Apple then purchased. So which Sam and I are like, we need to know about these things, This is how we get the scoops and the deals. But
what's it called?
Sneaky Sasquatch.
Oh, yeah. That's old, though.
This is old. I'm going back to last year. Yeah. All that ancient time. But so I'm really grilling him and he's like, well, there's this, but he has a sense. He's like, Mom, there's this new thing, but don't write about it yet. It's just emerging. I'm curious what your boys, minus your girl, who's younger or slightly older, like, are the memes playing out there too? Or what else are you noticing just around use of tech?
Here's the other interesting thing that I did recently that has been very enlightening, which is over the summer, I was watching my boys play Fortnite. And I'm like pretty hardcore about, like, I have YouTube and Roblox blocked at the router level of our house. Like, I really believe that user-generated systems like Roblox and YouTube are extremely dangerous for kids. There's an app. So the Dude Perfect guys launched an app that's got curated content for kids. And in fact, when you open the app has a video that addresses parents and says, we built this app for you because we know that YouTube is dangerous. And so they have Rober and they've got like a lot of great sort of it's almost like Nickelodeon. Not that Nickelodeon was necessarily that great, but it's a curated set of, what you would find in YouTube. Anyway, so I have those blocked. I really kind of think that as a parent, you shouldn't really let kids just like be influenced by any ideology of the entire internet at 8 years old. And I think that both Roblox and YouTube provide that pathway. I've also had like a strange number of people around me just in Marin County whose kids have had very dark experiences with Roblox where people have tried to groom them, et cetera. It's like very scary. And I'm not usually one to be like that, wave the, red flag thing about these things. But my general opinion is that Roblox is enormous. It has like 300 million DAU or something like that. And
wow.
I just don't think they take kids' safety seriously. That aside, I thought that Fortnite might be a similar version of this problem. But this summer I was We let our kids have like 1 hour of screen time, and they wanted to play Fortnite. So I decided, okay, I'll let you do it, but I want to watch. And as I'm watching, I realized that it looked a lot like a game I played a bunch in college. And so I asked ChatGPT, I'm like, is this like the game I played in college? And it's like, oh, yes, this is the spiritual descendant of the game you played in college. And in fact, it's built on the exact same gaming engine.
What was it called?
Unreal Tournament.
Okay.
And so I decided to get myself a Nintendo Switch too and start playing this game with them. And it's been a very powerful experience because it's taught me a lot about what's going on inside of these games. And it's been a bonding experience. Like, I've actually really enjoyed Fortnite. I think they've got a lot of really smart and interesting things going on. They're doing a lot of cool things with music. They do a lot of things with self-expression, and largely what you're doing in Fortnite is collaborating to try to win the game. It's kind of like a chess match that's interactive, and you're like trying to figure out like, how do I win this round? But there's like a language in there that they use, and I actually started to realize like, oh, this is the social network, and this is maybe not rocket science or that insightful to anybody listening, but this is the social network where a lot of these memes are moving, and they're moving in voice over the network because kids call up their friends from class and then they're all on the same team and then they play Fortnite together. And one of the coolest things that happened to me is that after I got back from summer and I was at soccer, at the soccer field for the first time, a bunch of the kids were coming up to me and high-fiving me, and looking me in the eyes. And like, I realized that there's a lot of dads and parents that are out there coaching soccer teams, coaching, whatever, doing the traditional things that we always think of as being part of the parent-kid relationship in the real world. But kids are also playing a lot of games, and they play a lot of Fortnite. And there should be more dads and frankly moms that try to get in here and play the game too, because it's like a social space that there are no adults inside of. And adults are oftentimes trying to regulate it from the outside rather than understanding the experience from the inside. And it's been very enlightening. And I think kind of a beautiful experience doing it that way.
Well, that like your point about the voice. I mean, like 6-7 has like an intonation to the meme. Like there's a way to say it, not just a way to write it. In fact, I was like initially confused by the journal article because it's not the meme, right? Without, so that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And, they say cooked a lot. Cooked is the thing, like, oh, you're cooking. Like, this is directly from Fortnite. Like, when you're doing a really good job, they're like, oh, you cook, I'm cooking, like, good job, you cooked that round. Like this stuff, I mean, it probably came out of somewhere else in gamer culture, but I've always kind of ignored gamer culture. I was very into playing this one game for sophomore year in college. I got into like tournaments of it and having my own team. I've always kind of ignored it. Otherwise, I didn't see it as part of my identity. But it's been interesting engaging in the 2025 version of this culture. And it's very clear, particularly post-pandemic, that a huge amount of the socializing and the mimetics and the way that people talk to each other are coming out of this culture.
That makes a lot of sense to me. The thing I noticed, the kids had an extra day to their long weekend and we were in New York. And so on planes, we're pretty liberal with iPad time. And one of the things they do is they just watch their favorite scenes over and over because they can just drag their finger on an iPad very easily, right? Like you don't have to like grab the remote and press hold and figure out, where it is. And also like some of the thing, I mean, they go through now unfortunately their current obsession is it cake? Which just like, I don't know, at some point someone told us about their show. And so I'm like sitting on the plane working on shitty Wi-Fi, hear my 6-year-old go, Mom, the wall is cake. And like half the airplane like turned around. So again, he's delighted and distracted.
How old? This is 6?
Yeah. I mean, he likes to bake, but I think it's more the element of surprise. But he was previously into like these movies like Sing or, K-pop Demon Hunters, which are also like very tied to soundtracks and songs. And so he'd be listening to look like he was watching the same part over and over, which is really listening to the same song over and over. And it just
there's a neuroscience reason behind this, right? Which is that children's brains are overwhelmed with data all day, right? Like they're like they're an AI model with that started out with no data, and so they're just like ingesting all of this data, and like it creates a lot of anxiety. Kids are like constantly in a state of anxiety because everything is new. And so the reason that they listen to the same song over and over again and watch the same video over and over again is that it calms them down. It makes them feel it reduces anxiety because it's data that they understand. It's not new. And I think once you kind of look at kids through that lens and how they use digital things through that lens, it's a little bit helpful. Although I do wonder if, I don't know, maybe it's fine. Maybe it's fine that they watch the same digital thing over and over again.
Yeah. I mean, I don't, again, when I'm trying to get work done on an airplane, I'm in the, broad leeway mode. But I also think like one of the reasons I like them watching movies versus playing video games is they're getting an arc. They're getting the character development. They're getting the lesson. Yeah. They're getting the story. We can then talk about the story. We can talk about how did the characters change during the story? All things I don't really do with my kids, but aspirationally do with my kids.
The question is like, is that what you want? And what they want, just to like not be overwhelmed by the data of the day?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. But it is one of those classic like form, function, interface content, right? Like because it's so, it's a trivial thing to do. Your finger is literally holding the iPad, right? Like it's right there the whole time. They'll jump between shows and they'll pick up stories wherever. They're constantly playing their favorite parts over and over. It's just a very different way to consume media. And I think there are pros and cons to it. To your point, if it's, something that's actually calming them down or something that is reinforcing, this is why they know all the lyrics to all the K-pop songs so quickly. But
I hadn't thought of this, but when we were kids, it's like you just had one DVD, right? Or one CD. And so you just listened to the same thing over and over again. Or there was like one TV show on and like all you could do is change the channel. So is our perspective on this skewed today because we know there's so much more out there? We're like, watch something better, versus like actually it is just fine. It's calming if they watch the same thing. It's almost like you don't want to expose them to too much variety each day. It's like there's a variety threshold. But the only reason we're even thinking this way is because of the nature of the internet. I don't know.
Yeah, you raise a good point because you're thinking of it as actually a calming mechanism where I was worried it had some of these like addictive properties to it.
But I think most parents are worried about, right? Most parents are worried about that. Like we had this massive meeting of all the parents in one of my kids' classrooms last week.
Oh my gosh. What was decided? The parents never agree.
They're moms all and dads. It started out last semester as like, we need to get everyone to sign a contract, which was like very swiftly pushed back extremely hard.
Is this a no iPhones at school? What contract is this?
It all started because of group texts, actually.
Oh, the group text.
Which is an interesting attack surface. Group texts are kind of social media by another name, right? Like if your child is in a group text with all of the kids in their class, that is now social media, right? And so, which is, I think, yes, you should be very careful with that for, K through 8, right? Like that's a social media environment. But should you have to agree to screen time rules? Well, it depends on if you're on the left or the right, And so anyway, where it evolved to is actually people just agreeing to sit down once a semester and just talk about the challenges that they're going through. But most people are worried about your point, Jess, which is this addictive behavior or is it not? And I think that the nature of how powerful these systems are at showing, one of the parents actually made a really good point that like when we were kids, there was nowhere for you to switch to. Like the next show that if you switched it to a different channel, it was a completely different context.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily the thing that the system knows your brain will like next. And so these these systems now are just like thing after thing after thing of it knows, like TikTok and Instagram now are absolutely unequivocally optimized for addiction. Like they will show you the next best thing to keep the dopamine level in your brain at the same level, right? And so that maybe is dangerous, right? But I think that's a different thing from what you're talking about, which is like them watching the same thing over and over again. Like that's calming. That's just calming, right? Versus getting shown a new thing infinitely. That's like, I think that's a different question.
See, I'm no longer worried. Unabated iPad,
Yeah, watching the same thing, I think that's a very different thing.
Watching the same surprise of the guy punch his hole through the wall and say, "It's cake." So comforting. Okay. I'll take your word for it. You know what?
Watching infinite new things that aren't the thing that they've already seen, that's like both bad for their dopamine regulation, but also potentially bad for addiction, you know?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we should keep. I've talked about wanting to talk more about all of that. I think it's important, and to say the least. And sometimes, a lot of the coverage is all like restricting this age accounts or something. I mean, that stuff is really important, but I think there's a lot of nuance in the usage and like.
Yeah, I mean, we had two big pieces of news in this week, right? That I think I noticed that California, the governor signed a bill that now requires social media companies to apply a label to social media warning of its effects on youth mental health.
Mark Benioff has gone a little bit wild with calling for the National Guard to come to San Francisco to help with Dreamforce. I don't know if you saw that over the weekend, but
I thought he was a Democrat.
The Times has a good piece you should read that addresses that point. Heather does. But he was when, I don't know, 5 years ago, however, pre-pandemic, who knows when it was, he asserted this very same thing, that there should be youth warning labels like cigarettes and other things. It was considered a very extreme point of view back when he said it, and it's absolutely not an extreme point of view now.
Well, it's going to happen in California now. I mean, it was signed into law. And then I also saw that I think Meta announced that they're changing the rules around teen accounts, which like I actually don't understand. Like they call them 13 plus and 18 plus, which I think means between ages and 13 and 18 content is going to be PG-13. It's all extremely confusing. I'm like, why don't you just call it the age range so that we can all understand what we're talking about here? But yeah, apparently they're going to try to filter out some of the content that could be more harmful, which that seems like a good thing.
Yeah, I think it's all a good thing. I just also think, though, to your point, like you kind of have to get in there and play Fortnite. Like I actually think that is a great metaphor for what it's like to really be on top of all this stuff. And I wish that weren't true, because it's a heck of a lot of work and very few people have the time and to put it in. But I think that is the answer. And now that isn't to like let the companies off easy at all, because they all need to do much better on it. But the other news was that ChatGPT is going to work to more personalize this so that it can add more or enable more erotica for its adult users. So I think Altman was actually saying they had gone too far in weeding out some content, and that they're, just trying to calibrate it. And again, good intention. It's like when I did this microbiome test, and then all of a sudden they told me there was an algorithm updates and all the foods I shouldn't eat were now my superfoods, and all my superfoods were now banned foods. And the net result was I don't believe any of it, but yet I still follow it. So with the mango. Dave, my friend, we've been chatting for a while. We got through a lot. We could keep doing it. I do have to ask, though, you realize that you're not in the snowy mountains. You're wearing a down jacket with a high-collared, very thick sweatshirt underneath. Like
I almost wore a ski hat for you today, Jess. Like winter is clearly coming. And it's freezing in Marin right now.
You know, winter's coming because I've switched up my, I'm starting to do more legs, you know, I'm starting to prepare to strengthen all those things that I'm in the stabilization era of sport, you know, just stabilize the joints, don't aim for greatness. So, well, I wish you some sun over there in Marin. I mean, goodness.
It's supposedly, this is like transient, and we're going to have one last couple weeks of, you know, good weather. We had some good weather this weekend. The Blue Angels did not show up for Fleet Week, but the Canadian Snowbirds did. There's actually way more of them than the Blue Angels, so we were out watching those. It was a strange thing to have to, at one point, one of my sons turned to me and he says, "Wait, there's no American planes here?" And I was like, I don't know how to explain this to you, you know, but it was like this kind of sad moment where I'm like, oh, my like 9-year-old really wanted the like American planes, and the American planes weren't there. And I thought it was like a prescient moment in how disconnected the reality of the sort of what's going on with the adults.
Yeah, no, that's a good, like, you guys couldn't figure out how to get the American planes. That's like pretty much you know, that's where the world is at, young minds. It has been a pleasure chatting, Dave. Pleasure to have all of you.
As always, Jess.
We will have our compatriots/spouses here back again soon, but thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next week for another episode of More or Less. Bye.
See you later.
If you enjoyed this show, please leave us a virtual high five by rating it and reviewing it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. Find more information about each episode in the show notes, and follow us on social media by searching for @MoreOrLess, @DaveMorin, @Lesson, @JLesson, and as for me, I'm @Brit. See you guys next time.